Here's the truth that nobody tells you. I fish for bass in every condition imaginable. And you know what I've learned? The best time to fish for bass is more complicated than you think. Forget bass fishing for beginners' best time to fish list. Here's the truth. There is no best time. But there is a best way to catch them depending on the conditions. And I'm about to share those with you. So it's a common question, what's the best time to go fishing? Basically what changes is the best way to fish changes. There's no best time to go fishing. It's just the best way to catch them at that particular day. So let's talk about that and help you kind of change your thinking a little bit in terms of what's the best time to go, but what's the best way to catch them right now on the lake that I'm at. So let's start with the big one. It's the one everybody talks about. Cold fronts, right? Before the cold front, they bite so good. After the cold front, it sucks. Can't catch them. And that's true to a certain degree. Before the front comes in, the fish are more active typically. It's a great time to find fish. If you move fast in a new area, it's a great day for scouting. If there's a group of fish in the area, they're probably going to be more aggressive and chasing more. So you can use a spinnerbait, a crankbait, bladed jigs like that. You get a couple bites in the area, you know that, okay, that's the spot they live. There's a concentration here. They show themselves a lot better, so you can just fish more quickly. What happens with the cold front is typically I've found that they'll still bite, but they won't chase as far for a bait. They're going to be, instead of roaming a whole flat, they might be next to one little particular stump, one bend of a creek channel, very tip of a point. They move out a little deeper. They group up more. From guiding at Lake Fork, everybody was looking for the big bass there. And over the years, I really saw a pretty distinct trend. Those prefrontal days were fun. Like I said, you cover a lot of water, moving baits, everybody's chunking and winding. It's the way that we all like to fish, and you can catch a lot of fish. But the days I caught my very biggest fish and got these big ones were the day after the front. And there was a reason. So if this is a big flat, it's a hydrilla flat or a stump flat, they're all out there, say in the springtime, they get ready to spawn. Well, when the cold front comes, it seemed like they would all group up into a small area. And it would be hard to find those fish because they weren't running stuff down. But if you get one bite, tell you what, they were grouped up. And what happens when you get fish grouped up like that, you can put the power poles down, you tie it to a tree, drop anchor or whatever, you get it lined up there, and all of a sudden, maybe you have 30 fish that are across a big grass flat, all of a sudden, all those fish are one little spot. It was amazing how then you could sit in that one spot and just drag a jig over and over. And you might go 15 minutes without a bite, and then all of a sudden you catch like a 7-pounder or something. Go another 20 minutes, I guess, we caught the one that was active, and all of a sudden, boom, 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 you catch 3 in a row or something. So the cold fronts, after that, you had to fish slower, but they were grouped up, and those fish, like I said, that's usually when I caught my biggest ones. Now, pretty much the standard answer is for what's the best time to go fishing, and it's a great time to go, low light conditions, right? Get out there at sunrise, fish at sunset. They love to bite topwaters then. They seem to be chasing. You get a little flurry, you get a window, and I'm definitely advocating for going then. If you, especially like me, if you like to fish shallow, it's a great time to get out there. They're active and roaming again, like we said. But then that window closes pretty quickly. Now, middle of the day, though, is not a kiss of death. And a lot of times this goes back to the cold front situation. Oh, it's sunny and it's slick, calm, not much movement, it's bright, sunny. And it does suck if you fish on the clear end of the lake. Those fish in that clear water that were up chasing your topwater were running it down and coming out of the water for it. At 6:30, by the time 7:30 rolls around, they kind of nip at it, and maybe they'll eat a lipless crankbait or a crankbait there, and by 9 o'clock, it's like, dude, they won't even eat a worm there. It's over. The muddy end of the lake, though, guess what? Those fish don't see very well. When it's bright sunny, that's where I head to the backs of the creeks, the upper end of the lake, and that's a bonanza. In the springtime, that muddy water is darker, it warms up faster, so the spring bite's going to be better there as it heats up on those sunny days. And those fish in that muddy water, when it's sunny, that'll put them right onto cover with the laydowns or next to a dock or something like that, so it makes them easier to target. So there again, what's the best condition? Well, that low light, early and late, it's the best time to be up shallow. When it's sunny and slick, calm, super bright, it sucks down on that other end, but now it's a perfect condition to be in the muddy water. So again, is there a best time? No, there's just a best time to be in a certain spot or the best time to be doing something different than you were doing in the clear water. And again, along the same lines, if you're somebody who likes to sleep in, doesn't like to go first thing in the morning, yeah, that first thing in the morning bite can be really good. But like I mentioned before, in the springtime and then fishing offshore in the summer, the afternoon into late afternoon is actually the best time of the day. In the springtime, it seems like up till about an hour before dark, from about noon until say like 5, 6 in the evening, that's when the sun's beating down. On those sunny days, that's when the bite gets the best. Sometimes you get out there first thing in the morning in the spring, you get a little flurry for the first hour, then you always get that mid-morning lull. If you've never experienced it, it's that period where you go from like 9 to noon, you get like 0 bites. It kind of sucks. Then all of a sudden it gets warmer. You start taking your sweatshirt off and it's kind of nice out now. Guess what? The bass start biting about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It gets really good, right? So springtime, late afternoon is good. And then also in the summertime, man, that offshore bite, when the sun gets the highest, those fish down in 20 to 30, 35 feet of water, that's when they're getting some visibility. That's when they get active. The shad, instead of being up shallow roaming, are tighter grouping up together, and that's when the deep bite gets better. So, if you have the electronics, you can get way offshore, but basically you can just go, if you were catching them, say, in the top water, up on a point, up shallow up there, throwing the top water, well, come middle of the day, try a worm or something, and just, instead of casting towards the bank, turn around and cast out to the deeper section or just drift out there. A lot of times those fish are still nearby. It's not like they swim all the way out to the middle of the lake. They just move out a little bit deeper. If you can find a rock pile, a grass edge, a brush pile or something out in the end of that point, I'll bet you they'll be out there. So a lot of times they don't move far. They just move a little bit deeper. If it's the back of a creek, they may go to the creek channel, the first drop off or something. But middle of the day is great for fishing that structure and out deeper. And then here's another big one I think people kind of mess up on. It's what's the water temperature? And they have the water temperature gauge, and it's like, it says 57 today. It's like, dude, if it was 60, they'd start biting. Or if it was 65, I know they'd be spawning. Or if it's oh man, the water in here is only 46 degrees or something like that. What's the best temperature? What's the right temperature? Well, for starters, I don't think there's a correct one. And in the fall, it's actually colder is typically better. When it cools down, cold fronts actually turn them on. Indian summer, where it kind of gets warm again, say in October, all of a sudden you had some cool nights and the fish are kind of biting, gets hot again, it starts getting into the 80s or something. That kind of puts them back in a funk. So to me, what's the right temperature? When do they bite? Well, it doesn't matter. It's not 60, it's not 50, not 82, anywhere in between. It's the trend. In the springtime, a warming trend typically means, as it's warming, if it's 50 degrees and it had been 40 last week and now it's up to 50, those fish are moving back shallow. They're getting active. They're starting to feel right. If the temperature is 50 and it had been 65 last week and it's dropped down to 50, they're probably not chasing up shallow. They're probably in a funk up shallow, and the deeper ones are biting. Opposite in the fall. In the fall, if the water had been 70 and moved down to 60, they're starting to think about winter, starting to feed up. They're probably getting more aggressive, getting shallow, chasing bait. If it had been 60 and now it's moved up to 70, well, then that 70-degree temperature, that's the fact that it's warming kind of shuts them off. So the trend is way more important. But there again, there's no right water temperature. Like I said, in the spring, if it's 50, it climbs up to 60, they're coming into the shallows. They're looking for a place to spawn. They're moving. They're fanning out on the flat. They're also more random. They're not concentrated. So one of those, if you throw a wacky worm or something, if you're throwing a bladed jig up shallow there, you're going to have to cover a lot of water. They're not going to be grouped up. They're probably going to be all around the whole back end. So is that better? Well, some people like to fish that way better. If it's a cold front there again, or it's dropping, they're probably not up there chasing like that. They're probably moving back to the deep edge of the grass, to stump rows, to points, moving out to the creek channel. But they're also probably more grouped up then. So they're not going to chase as much, but there again, they're more grouped up. If you find one, there might be a group of them. You can drop the power poles and go ahead and catch a whole bunch of good fish doing that. So again, there's no right or wrong temperature, no right or wrong time. It's just doing the right thing at the right time. Now, the flip side of that, some people put some stock in it, and I'm not going to say it doesn't work, but I don't even pay attention to it. And it's the barometer and the solar tables, the lunar charts, all that stuff. Maybe it turns them on and off, but there's so many factors out there. There's a million different factors. To me, that's just kind of immaterial. I don't even pay attention to it, and it's kind of like pay attention to the conditions. If they're chasing around up shallow, fish shallow. If they're not, you might need to slow down and stuff. But I don't even look at it. The barometer, it's more, to me, it's more of a, it's after the cold front, then the barometer is changing. Yeah, maybe it changed their behavior. But like I said, you fish enough tournaments and check those results. I don't care if the barometer is going up, down, indifferent. Somebody's catching them every day. So who cares what they say? Figure out what the fish want. They're the only one that has the opinion that matters. And somewhere, somehow, they're biting. Now, a little bit different, don't confuse that with tides on tidal rivers and current generation, like in the TVA lakes on the Tennessee River, Kentucky Lake, and Gunnersville, all those places. When they pull current, yeah, it gets a lot of them active. But there again, it's not necessarily the right time or the wrong time. When there's current, it tends to pin them down to the bottom more. They group up a little bit more. If you're fishing offshore, guys love it, and it makes it easier. But then they also suspend and they're still out there eating when there's not as much current. Their feeding behavior just changes. That's where the guys with the live scope hunt them down. They're more floating around, more suspended. They're still eating. The way you have to go after them is a little bit different. And then the final one, this is kind of in between, but moon phase, like 2 months out of the year, I think it has an impact. And it's pretty much only sometimes the new moon, but definitely the full moon. We've seen it for years here. They've charted it in Texas, where in the spring with the Share Lunker program, where people donate fish that are 13 pounds or bigger to be spawned by the state, right around that full moon, I don't know if it's everything comes up in mass to spawn as a survival instinct, but yeah, right around the full moon when it's around the spawn in Texas, that it's pre-spawn in February, then March for sure, and sometimes the full moon in April. If you live farther up north, it might be April, May and stuff. To me, during the spawn, that full moon is a key time. It's like if the conditions are right, it's like those big females will come in there, investigate. They're more catchable, I guess. They're just more susceptible. It seems like more big fish get caught on the full moon of those spawning months than any other given days. Those are always like key ones. So as long as the conditions are right. But there again, if it's the right conditions, if you get a warming trend or something, typically more get caught. So I do take that into account. But the rest of the year, people talk about, oh, it's a full moon at night. They don't feed during the day. And it's a dark moon, so they don't feed at night and stuff. There again, if there's a tournament, somebody's going to catch them. Usually a lot of people are going to catch them. People are going to figure out a way. It's just a different way to catch them. So the next time you go fishing, I make excuses myself. I don't catch them every time. But just remember in the back of your head, somewhere the fish are biting. Figure it out, and you may be the one who's having that career day today. So hopefully it's you.